Good evening and welcome to another edition of Choose to Challenge. I am LaWanna Bradford with the Bradford Group and the Bradford Group Consulting, and I am so excited that you are joining us here for another edition of Choose to Challenge. It is Women's History Month, and we are here to talk about what it means to move forward in life and in business. Sometimes we get so caught up in trying to pivot and find the right peg to fit in the right size hole that we forget the basics. And what I found in life and in business, sometimes to move the wheels, to turn the wheels and create momentum and to move forward really comes to getting back to the basics. So today we're going to talk about 3 simple keys to have success in your life and in business. And before we get started, I want to give a salute to Women's History Month. All right, well, let's get into it. This is a teachable moment, and I love sometimes just coming on where I don't have any guests, where we can sort of do a deep dive and unpackage some things that will help to change that paradigm, shift those narratives in order for us to elevate to the best and highest version of ourselves, whatever that means to you. Now, when we think about success and moving forward in your life, only you can define what that looks like. So I want you to take a moment and just ask yourself, if you had a magic wand right now and you could wave it and make a wish, what would you change in your life? What one thing would you change? What one thing would be different if you could just quickly wave that magic wand? Well, I hope you have an image of that. Because I want to tell you, ladies, that success leaves clues. I interviewed an individual last week, and we were talking about letting go of the excuses and moving forward. And sometimes we allow fear of the unknown or fear of rejection or fear of failure to stagnate us. And what she encourages her clients to do is to find someone who's been there, done that, got the t-shirt, so you can emulate the steps that they made. Because when you're able to navigate through a course already proven, your likelihood of getting there is going to be that much greater. But that's a sidebar. That's not one of the 3 steps that I'm going to talk about today. But I do want you to really think about that success does leave clues, and success doesn't happen by accident. It does not happen by accident. And I want you also to realize that where you are, whether we want to agree or not, where we are is largely dictated by our own mindset and the behaviors that mindset triggers. So when we look around us, often our life is reflecting back at us what we have consciously or unconsciously communicated to the universe. It really echoes in kind. We have the paintbrush, and our life is a blank canvas waiting to be painted upon. And the wonderful thing about our life is it's never constant. It's always changing. It's always evolving, right? So you think about a person who's a watercolorist. Well, they can begin to paint a scene and then decide they don't want it anymore and wipe it down and start all over. Well, true, we can't rewind our life, but we can take those lived experiences, those lessons learned, and we can, in a sense, do over because we've got a different mindset. We have a different state of awareness. We're at a different point in our lives, and we can reinvent ourselves based upon that new set of knowledge, those new skills, that growth that we have in our lives. So you're not defined by where you've been because you are who you are. You're this amazing, brilliant, divine being that's uniquely created for a time such as this. And when you see yourself as unique and that there will never, ever in the history of mankind be another one like you, that in and of itself brings you into a seat of empowerment. It really does. But you have to, again, get into that mindset, believe it, own it, show up in your own life. I find so many people are relegated to the sidelines of their own life. And I think that's such a sad existence. They find more joy and more pleasure looking at other people's lives, right? They live vicariously through other people instead of saying, okay, that's great. I can celebrate the joys and the successes that are happening in other people. But I too have this wonderful life that I want to be able to celebrate. I want to be able to showcase to the world, to make that indelible mark on my family, right? So that I'm not just accidentally going through life, but going through life purposefully, intentionally. So, what I want you to think about are, again, what is it that you would want to change? And ask yourself another question. Why is it that you want that thing changed? And if it does change, again, you wave that magic wand. If that situation does change, what will be different? How will you be different? Think about that. So the first key, is to become very focused minded and not excuse minded. So you want to become focused minded. And the reason why I say not excuse minded is because any excuse will do, right? It's easy for us to come up with excuses as to why we didn't do something, why something didn't work, why we're not feeling our best. Excuses sometimes makes us feel better. But when you say, I'm going to let go of the excuses and I'm going to be laser focused, that in itself puts you in a seat of empowerment, a seat of ownership, right? Because you're not looking for someone or something to blame for where you are. You're saying, okay, it is. Life happens. It does. Life sometimes just happens. Now what? So when you think about that one thing that you said you want to change, your question is, how do you become laser focused? And you want to have that clarity of thought. You want to be so wedded to that vision, that item, that thing, that circumstance that you want to change, that nothing can distract you from it. None of the squirrel moments, the bling moments, right? The shiny object moments. And those shiny object moments, more often, the distractions happen, not the external distractions, but internally, right? The mindless chatter, as Burge Smith Lyons often says, the bubble talk ends up distracting us. So the secret number one, or the key, the first key, is to make sure that you have that clarity of focus. So you want to shift from an excuse mindset to a laser focused mindset. Laser focused. Think about when horses are in a race and they have the blinders on. The blinders are there for a reason, right? To keep them focused on the goal at hand. So you want to be like that racehorse. You want to have those blinders on, whatever it is that you're saying that you want to change, and you want to hone in on it and not be distracted by things that can happen to your left or right, because that can easily happen, and especially the mindless chatter that goes on. Because we can be our own worst critic. We can get in our own way. So this helps you to get out of your way and stay committed to where you say you want to go. And that brings us to number 2. So the second one is elevating from being intentional to being committed. Again, elevating from being intentional to being committed. What's the difference? Well, we can intend all day long, right? We hear set your intention. Okay, well, I set my intention. That's my desire. That's my motivation. I can see it. I can visualize it. What's the next step? The next step is committing to it, doing the daily to change, right? It's really important that you stay committed. And I want you to ask yourself that item that you wrote down that you said is important to you, how committed are you? How committed are you? Because it goes back to that first key. If you're not committed, you'll find that any excuse will do. Oh, I intended to do X. I meant to be here. But you come up with an excuse why you didn't show up. Martha Beck, who is a sociologist and was also known as Oprah Winfrey's life coach, best-selling author, incredible speaker and leader in her own right. And one of the things that she says is how you do one thing is how you do everything. And what she meant by that statement is more often than not, how you show up in one way in life really is replicated in how you show up in other things. So if you find that you're a person who's on time, a person who ensures that you follow through on your word, you will typically see consistency in that behavior in everything that you do. But if you're a person who is kind of that hit and miss, sometimes I'm there, sometimes I'm not, I can be dependable or maybe not. If you really look at the patterns of your life, you'll see that sometimes there are these little buckets of consistency that are showing you how you are showing up in your own life. Ask yourself, if someone right now were to write a statement defining who you are, how would they describe you? How would they describe you? What words would they use to describe you? If everyone is saying the same thing, like, oh my gosh, I know that Sally, she's always on time. She's always on time. Everyone is saying that, then that tells you, yes, I'm very consistent in that behavior. Those mannerisms are always showing up. But if it's like, well, sometimes she's there, sometimes she's not, sometimes I can depend, sometimes I can't. Again, that's something that's in your control, right? So again, we can intend all day long. We can have the desire, we can have the motivation. Oh, I want it so badly to do A, B, and C. But again, going back to number one, excuses. Or you can say, you know what? I'm going to have that laser focus. And I'm going to commit to whatever it is that I said that I am going to do, to whatever it is that will help me move that much farther along, to commit to whatever I need to in order to facilitate and bring about the change that I said that I want to have. See, it's time that we stop leaning and looking to other people to make changes in our lives. It's time that we, again, this show is about choose to challenge, change our narrative, change how we show up for ourselves, shift that paradigm so that we begin to see the world that we want to experience evolve around us. It's about taking accountability and responsibility for this amazing life that you have. It's really easy to point fingers and blame everyone else. But what if you said, you know what, I'm going to stand up and take accountability and responsibility? What if you said, I'm going to take this one thing, not 50, one thing, and I'm going to be laser focused, and I'm going to be committed to it. I'm going to see it all the way through. See, when you are intentional, again, it's that motivation. You know, it's priming the pump. You're getting excited. You're feeling good. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I can do it. But when you're committed, even when you don't feel like it, you're doing it. A good example is working out, right? January 1st, the gyms are packed. Why? Because everyone has good intention. I intend to work out every day. I intend to lose weight. I have the right intentions. I am there. I am motivated. I am pumped. And you are there. And then halfway through the month, most of the people who showed up are not there any longer. Why? Because they didn't migrate from intention to committed. And you have those that are committed that even when they don't feel like it, if it's just a little bit, they continue to move. I was watching a little clip on YouTube, a reel, and it was so amazing. This is martial artist. And he said there are days when he doesn't feel like getting up and working out. That's just reality. He said there are just days I don't feel like it. But before he chooses to not work out, he says he asks himself a question. What if I don't work out today? What will that trigger? Will it cause a cascading effect? Will it give me the latitude to excuse myself from what I committed to do? He said, if I choose not to work out today, then maybe tomorrow comes and something else gets in the way. And I say, well, it's okay if I miss another day. It's only 2 days. And then suddenly the 2 days becomes 3 days. And you may say, LaWanna, that's extreme. But this was his example. And he realized that when he gives his self-talk, his commitment overrides the excuses. So even if he said, even if the weather is bad, or even if he's not feeling his best, he says, if I only do 10 sit-ups, I may not have gone and did a 30-minute workout, but if I did 10 sit-ups, I'm still committed to what I said I was going to do. So again, back to the basics, shifting yourself from being that intentional, motivated, rah, yes, I'm going to do it, to being that person that says, even when I don't feel like it, I'm going to follow through. I'm going to follow through in action. I'm going to follow through in deed. I'm going to follow through in word, right? I know my father always said that your word is your bond. You know, when you put that word out there, does it fall flat or does it land on something of substance? Can people count on you? Can you even count on you? Or do you just put out words because it sounds good and makes you feel good for the moment, but then the next day you're beating yourself up as to why didn't I do that? Or why did I tell myself this when I knew that wasn't going to happen? The third thing, and this is probably the most important of the three. So again, we're talking about being laser focused, right? Having that clarity of thought, putting those blinders on. The second is making sure that you are committed to whatever you say that you're going to do. And then the third thing, which is most important, is magnifying what it is that you want versus what you don't want. Magnifying what you want versus what you don't want. And we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back.
Business and Financial Raw Talk, a no-holds-barred forum for leaders and innovators with award-winning business strategist and financial analyst, LaWanna Bradford with the Bradford Group. With Raw Talk, we are empowering women to rise and succeed in business and finances, and improve the world for the next generation. Get ready to get raw and real. Live each Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern on e360tv.com.
We are back talking about the three simple keys to change your life. 3 simple keys to change your life. So we already went over 2. Having laser focused, being committed, and the third, very key. So that triangle. The third is magnifying what you want versus what you don't want. And that may seem intuitive, but it really isn't, because it's very easy to step into that place of fear, that place of doubt, that place of limiting beliefs, negative thinking, stinking thinking, and focus on all the things you don't want to happen, right? What if? And you start pondering that. You start sitting in it, stewing in it. And you realize, and the more you stew in it, the harder it becomes to move forward. Because then what do? Notice the loop. You go back into that excuse loop. It's a do loop. Go back into that do loop. You have all the right intentions, but you're allowing fear, false evidence appearing real, to petrify you, and you start looping and looping and looping and looping. And you're wondering, why have things not changed? Why are things still the same? Why are we now in March and you made this great grand goal in January and you haven't really moved the needle? Maybe spinning, kicking up a lot of dust, but you haven't moved. You're not seeing a shift. You're not seeing a change because you're finding yourself paralyzed by this fear, these things that haven't even happened yet. Now imagine if you paused and said, okay, let's go back to what it is. Remember that first thing I said, identify what it is you want to accomplish. So that's where writing it out, having those vision boards, this is where those pieces come into play. Maybe even recording yourself so you can hear yourself speaking this vision into life. Maybe you have that card by your bedside that you're seeing it the first thing in the morning and you're looking at it the last thing at night, or it's in your bathroom window, but it's someplace that's always visible to you, right? So it's that repetition. So now you're reprogramming that brain. You're getting into those blocks, those limiting beliefs, and you're saying, I'm shifting these subconscious thoughts that are causing me to look at and focus on the things that I don't want. I don't want to do that. I want to focus on what I want. And what you want is that vision you cast, right? So the more you focus on that, that's the playground. That's the sandbox. That's where the sandbox is, ladies. It's in the things that you want, not what you don't want. What you don't want is contrast, right? That lets you see, okay, that's not what I want. If I'm saying that I want to have a business that serves young women and helps empower them with a spirit of entrepreneurship, well, I'm going to keep focusing on that. And I'm going to continue to paint that picture or weave that tapestry so it becomes living to me. That it's not just a thought. It's not just something I see. It's no longer two-dimensional, but I start to feel it. And when I start to feel it, I start to believe it. See, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen. So even though it hasn't yet manifested, I'm so wedded and committed to that vision that I see it. And in my mind, because the brain doesn't know fact from fiction, in my mind, it already is. And so I begin to walk in it. I have a different level of confidence. My conversation is very different. I'm not talking about what didn't happen. I'm talking about what is happening, right? Though you may not see it, it doesn't matter, but it's what's happening. So I ask you that when you're thinking about how do I shift my life? Identify first what it is that you want to shift and why. And then ask yourself, can I paint that picture of where it is that I want to go? Because the shift is saying, I don't want this over here anymore. I want to be over here. Okay, so let's put down what you don't want. Let's elevate what you say you do want. Let's magnify that. And when I magnify it, now how committed am I to bring this into fruition, to bring it into manifestation, to pull it in? How committed are you? And when you're committed to that, remember that laser focus, that's all you're going to see. You're going to see it. You're going to embrace it. You're going to speak it. You're going to walk it. You're going to feel it. You're going to live it. And you're going to one day wake up and it's like, it's here. It's here. It's always been. When we think about the fact that we're energetic beings, right? Living on multiple planes, spiritual planes, whatever you want is already there. Why can't you see it? Why don't you see the doors of opportunities that are opening for you? Why don't you see the different people that are there to help guide you along the way? Sometimes it's because we lost focus and we're busy with our heads down, concerned about what could happen, the what ifs. Instead of just saying, I know what I have spoken over my life. I know where I'm focused. I know what I've committed to do. And I know I'm going to follow through on that commitment. No matter what, I'm going to keep on pressing. Like that martial artist said, sometimes you're not going to feel like it. But if it's only 10 sit-ups is better than none. If my commitment is to exercise daily, then that's what I'm going to do. Again, how committed are you? So let's just go back to those three that we're talking about. Is the first thing when you're thinking about changing your life, ask yourself, am I excuse focused or am I focus minded? Meaning, do I have that clarity of focus? Am I crystal clear? Is it laser focus? Or will any excuse will do? You be truthful to yourself. How many excuses do you tell yourself a day? Sometimes individuals get so caught up in the excuses that they become comfortable in it and they don't even hear themselves, right? It's like, oh, it was the traffic. Oh, it was this. Oh, really? Well, there's traffic every day. Change your behavior in order to adjust with the known variables, right? Again, any excuse will do. So the first thing is to get out of the excuse zone and get into that laser focus zone if you're looking to truly change and elevate your life to the next level. That's the first thing. The second is having intention is one thing. That's your motivation. That's yes, I'm going to do this. I'm feeling good. Yes. It's that pep rally you give yourself. The commitment is where the work is done. The commitment is those late hours. It's that studying. It's that whatever it is that you need to do to follow through. That's where the work is. That's where the work happens. How committed are you? Or again, we're thinking about that cycle. Any excuse will do. And then you're wondering, why am I still experiencing the same life? Why haven't things changed? Why are things still forever the same? Or if there's a change, it seems I make 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Why am I not building? Why does life seem to be so fluid for some people and a struggle for others. And it doesn't mean that those that are experiencing fluidity aren't going through life's challenges. Yes, they are. But again, it's that mindset and how they choose to face those challenges. And again, how committed they are to the vision that they have for the blueprint of their life. So whatever that thing is that you want to change, create your blueprint, see it crystal clear, be committed to it. And the third and final thing is make sure that you focus, celebrate, magnify what you want to see, not what you don't want, what you want to see. Because what you focus on expands. What you focus on expands. Well, I want to say thank you so much for joining me for this Women's History Day special where we're talking about the 3 simple keys to change your life. And next week on Choose the Challenge, join me because Krista Janik and I are going to talk about letting go of the excuses and soaring. So it is a stepping stone, if you will, from this conversation, and it's taking her lived experience and showcasing that story to us and giving her insight on how we have to be very guarded about our life's blueprints. We have to be very guarded because sometimes people can speak things into us that can cause us to stumble, cripple us in a sense where we don't move, or we don't move with the same level of confidence, or we just change altogether because we think they're not going to support me. They're probably right. I'm not going to be successful. Your mindset is so critical. But you have to also realize you're not a mind. You have a mind. You live in a body. But you're not your mind. You have more control and more creative power over your life than many of you realize. Sometimes it takes just going back to the basics. Don't overcomplicate things. Again, identify what is it that you want to change. And yes, I'm repeating myself intentionally. What is the one thing you want to change? And what will that change? And keep yourself from distractions. And hopefully my internet has stayed stabilized. We've had some issues here, but I do hope that you enjoyed this time. So think about where you're going. Have that focus, laser focus, right? Make sure that you are committed, and then you magnify what it is you want to happen. That's where you put your focus. Don't think about what could happen. That's your seat of power. That's when you're going to start seeing the changes happen. Little by little. Till ultimately, you're living, as Jacqueline Young says, your best life. But it's up to you. It's your choice. I am LaWanna Bradford here with Choose the Challenge, and it has been an honor and a privilege to join you on Women's History Month to talk about the 3 keys to change your life. I look forward to seeing you next week with a special guest, Krista Janik, and we're going to talk a little bit more about eliminating those excuses so that you can soar. And I'm going to take one quick break and then close us out. Thank you again so much for joining us on Choose to Challenge. If you are interested in being a guest on Choose to Challenge, please feel free to reach out to me on all things social media, or you can email me with Choose to Challenge on the subject line at LaWanna@BradfordGroupMTG.com, LaWanna@BradfordGroupMTG.com. Would love to have you as a part of our platform. And also, if you're interested in just connecting with me, again, connect with me on all things social media, LaWanna Bradford, or on Instagram, the LaWanna Bradford. And you can always email me at LaWanna@BradfordGroupMTG.com. I want to say thank you again for joining us for another edition of Choose to Challenge. And just remember that in life and in business, when your vision intersects with opportunity, success is inevitable. Don't be afraid to challenge those systems, those institutions, those norms, those mindsets, those limiting beliefs. Break through those barriers and elevate to the best and highest version of you. You can do it, but just be willing to choose to challenge. Until next time, goodbye, everyone.